Hey there, Shalini Mittal here from Tech Gatha, and in this video, let's understand about what are constructors with a simple example. So let's create a new class and I'll give it a name as Constructor Demo. Now there are a few rules when we talk about constructors and what are they. Let me delete all these. Now see, as the name suggests, constructor used to construct the object. What do you mean by construct the object? Whenever you construct a class object, remember we say, for example, if we have class student, so we say class student SV S1 is equals to new student. So when you say new, this is where you are constructing the object of a class. It is used to construct the object of a class, and its main purpose is it is used to initialize the data members of the class. We already are aware about what do we mean by data members of the class. So the whole and sole purpose of the constructors is to initialize the data members of the class. Now for this purpose there are few rules for the constructors. I'll just elaborate and pinpoint all the rules, and then we will see in the example how to implement all those rules. Constructor used to initialize data members of the class, that's the purpose. The rules for the constructors are, they are methods, but they are special methods whose name is same as the class name. 1. Second, very important, they do not have a return type, or at least you do not specify any return type. Even though they are methods, you never specify the return types. So they are special methods whose name is same as the class name. They do not have a return type. They are not invoked explicitly using the dot operator. You do not use the dot operator. Alternatively, how do we say S1 dot, say for example input, right? So we call the methods using dot. Constructors are methods, but they are not invoked explicitly using the dot operators. They cannot be, but they have to be invoked because they are method. They are invoked automatically when the object of the class is created, right? When we say new is when the object of the class is created, and that's where automatically the constructors are called. Now let's try to understand this with an example. They are methods, right? So of course they will have open and close round bracket. Their name is same as the class name. So in my case the class name is Constructor Demo. So it's Constructor Demo. It's a method, so you can choose to write public. It's a method, so it will have open and closed curly brace. Constructor called, correct? That's just, and then let me write the static void main, the class name OB is equals to new class name. So special methods whose name is same as the class name. It is case sensitive, so please remember it is case sensitive. Okay, they do not have a return type, so please don't write public int, public void, public string, nothing, because they don't have a return type. They are not invoked explicitly using the dot operator. So if I want to say ob dot, you won't have an option to call the constructors. They are not invoked by dot operator, but they are invoked automatically when the object of the class is created. That means when we say new. So you can see here it's open and close round bracket. And whenever you call methods, you call the methods with the method name followed by open and close round bracket. See, it's the same. If I save it and if I execute, see, constructor call. So I just said new. On this statement, automatically the constructor gets called when the object of the class is created. we don't call the constructors explicitly using the dot operators. Fine. Now, this constructors, because it's a method, right? So it can take parameters. You can write any logic inside it. So if, else, for, while, everything is allowed because it's a method with a condition. It doesn't has a return type. Now, this constructor which takes no parameter is called as a default constructor, as it takes no parameters. Let me put in this so actually it's readable, otherwise it's very light, the font, the color is very light, right? So default constructor, as it takes no parameters. We can definitely have a constructor that can take parameters. So suppose I write int number. So I can create an instance variable and I can say int number. And now, as we mentioned, constructors are used to initialize data members of the class. I am passing in a parameter. I can say constructor with parameters called, and when I pass in the value, I can say number is equals to number. So it is used to initialize the data members of the class. This constructor that takes parameters is called as parameterized constructor because it takes parameters. Of course, it can take more than one parameters of different types, and that's allowed. Now, when I run this program, if you would see, I still get constructor call. It doesn't call the method constructor with parameters because when you create the object of the class, then you have to pass in the value. Because this takes int, you pass an integer value. Alternatively, of course, you can create a variable and you can take the input from the user. So I can take the input, and if you want to pass in that value, you can do that as well. Now, if you would notice, I have to provide an input. I say 23, constructor with parameters called, the value in the variable n, that is 23, gets passed, and the data member, that is of the class number, is initialized. Now, if I want to use the value of this number, so say for example, I create a function, I say void display. I can say void display and say square of number into number, and then from here I can say ob dot display. So you've already learned about methods, how do you call, how do you pass, and now when I run this main method, I pass in a value 5. You can see constructor parameters called. So it calls this method, the number is initialized with the value passed in, that is 5. 5 into 5 is 25. The display method is able to access the value in the variable number and print it. So this is just about constructors. They are actually very simple. Just remember that they have the name same as the class name. They can or cannot take any parameters. If they don't take parameters, they are called as default constructor. If they take parameter, they are called as parameterized constructor. Default constructors can be used to initialize the variable with a default value. So now here, if I create one more object of the class without passing in any value, in that case, what will display print? When I call this particular constructor without any parameters, my number is initialized to default value 2. Display will print the square of 2. So just to validate that, I pass in 7. So you would see, sorry, this should be ob1 dot display, my bad. You would see I pass in 7. So n, 7 ob.display, square of 7 is 49. When I call in this particular ob1, it calls constructor call with no parameters because I'm not passing any values. When I say ob1.display, the value of number on ob1 was 2. It says square of 2 is 4. And whenever in a class you have two constructors with the same name but different parameters, in that case it is called as constructor overloading. And this is again one of the implementation of the OOPS principle, that is polymorphism. So if a class has more than one constructor with different number sequence of type of parameters, it is called as constructor overloading. So that's all for this video. Happy learning, take care and bye-bye.